All right, quick recap. We had 4 qualifying rounds of Swiss, after which we had 15 players for the playoffs. We had the 3 players who went 4-0 and the 12 players who went 3-1. So, since we wanted a clean 16-player playoff, we needed to get that 16th player from those with a 2-2 record. So, my idea was to have this quick mini playoff tiebreaker for that 16th seed. So, I reached out to the 2-2 players, asked if they were interested in participating, and most of them said yes, and we knocked this out in a couple days. It went great. We didn't have the perfect number for it, like 8 or 16. So we had to give 2 buys, but yeah, based on a record. But that was fine. I'm very pleased with how it turned out. So we are going over the highlights from that mini tiebreaker, and we are beginning with a round 1 highlight match, if there ever was one: Stone Cold versus ZF. So we see the Deoxys attack lead against Fortress. Is there going to be a fire move? No, there's going to be Thunder, which does a lot but still 3 KO. Para, but it's Lumfory, as has popped up to get that lair on Darkrai. So DOA hits a second Thunder, and there we see the crit rapid spin doing 1,000,000 damage. And ZF chooses to break DOA's Sash and deny it the possibility of getting spikes over getting either his own layer of spikes or a second layer of T-spikes. So DOA goes for Ice Beam and finishes the Fori off, as ZF does not want anything else switching in. So that suggests, with the way he's just kind of, it's almost like a suicide fortress. Just, stay in, don't let anything else take damage. Just have it set the conditions for the rest of your Pokemon. Break the DOA Sash, keep the hazards off. That's big for denying Stone's, or for limiting Stone's ability to break through his core, which is presumably bulky, given a Fori. It's the opposite of what you expect from a DOA lead. So in comes Tina O to chase DOA out with Shadow Sneak. In comes Dialga, shows leftovers. Tina O runs. In comes a T-Tar, and that gets T-waved. So, we don't know if this Dialga has rocks or not, but as soon as Stone shows Roar instead of getting up the rocks on the Tar, then it suggests he's using that Stone Dialga that we saw very early in the tournament with Dragon Pulse, E-Power, T-Wave, and Roar. And he figured, look, that T-Tar's probably getting up rocks, because if you're, at this point you want to get up the rocks as soon as possible, right? And T-Tar is not a great Dialga switch unless you're really bulky. And if you're running a really bulky Tar, then it's going to have rocks. So Stone said, I'm going to Roar and see if, because this is basically a free Roar as rocks are going up. And that way I can probably drag in another Pokemon and get more information and make more of a concrete game plan, which is really key given that he's dealing with the timer of toxic spikes. So good move, really heads up move. Instead he drags in Giratina O, which is, not more information, but that 6% from Sand can be really big later on, since Tina O lives hits by slivers of its HP all the time. So, still a good matchup for Dialga. T-Tar comes back in at full health, takes a 37 from a crit Dragon Pulse and shows Lefty, so yeah, that's bulky. So, lots of information gained, and some damage spread as well. In comes Groudon now on the Para. Let's assume T-Tar used Low Kick or Superpower or EQ. And back comes Giratina O as Stone's Groudon shows itself to be the rocker. So, we don't know what Stone wants to do against this Giratina O. Does he want to switch to Dialga? Does he have T-Wave? Does he want to stay in? Does he want to sack DOA for a clean shot with something else? We don't know. But ZF decides to go to his Groudon, and Stone reveals T-Wave. So, I assume that ZF was, well, it's a great move because it covers the possibility of T-Wave, and it also covers a double switch to Dialga. Because if you're wondering, well, why not just get Groudon in on the rocks if they're so obvious? Well, the answer is, well, it can be twofold. One, you don't 100% know that Groudon has rocks. It's likely, so if but Stone might also just not want to get rocks, because it could theoretically still be on that Dialga. So you don't know 100%. And number two, when you have Groudon in on When you switch Groudon in on the T-Wave, then you leave open that possibility that Stone would try to switch to Dialga on Giratina O, and that gives you a much better one-on-one and possibility to do damage than Groudon on Groudon. Obviously, Groudon on Groudon is not bad, but it's better if you give yourself the chance to have that Groudon on Dialga matchup, because then you are way more out in front than in this one-on-one against Stone's own Groudon, in which case, yeah, you might be doing some damage, but you're also going to be taking a lot more. I think that makes sense. If not, then let me know in the comments, because I got to move on so I don't spend 16 minutes on this. But I believe, I made it clear. So he gave himself that chance for the advantageous one-on-one, and with Substitute, then that desire for that advantageous one-on-one becomes even more clear, because he wouldn't just be throwing out an EQ if he had that good one-on-one against Dialga. He would also be able to get a sub up, and that would make it even more obnoxious to deal with. So that's really cool to see, as Stone just stays in and EQ, sees what's going on, and Protect. Sub-Protect on random stuff is awesome in general, but Sub-Protect Groudon with T-Spikes, I really dig that. How to ruin Kyogre one-on-one. So, staying in and EQing as Stone is potentially dangerous in case that Groudon is not a Paradancer, but a Double Dancer, because you don't want it SDing and rock polishing and potentially messing your whole team up. But we also don't know what his other Pokemon are. We also don't even know if his Groudon has Roar in the last slot, so it would be able to prevent the double boost. So, but either way, just staying in. It's also a good move because it's not likely that ZF just starts boosting before seeing half of Stone's team. So, especially since there's such a good likelihood of a Giratina origin, so probably just firing off attacks. All in all, good move staying in and EQing. And turns out ZF is not boosting at all. He's sub-protecting. And Protect Groudon is great in general, but never really seen sub-Groudon of any variety. I mean, that's more of like an advanced thing, and it's not even sub-lefties, it's sub-Salic. That's what you see there. But yeah, here Groudon is going to finish off, ZF's Groudon finished off Stone's, and ZF does not protect. Good move because he was fearing spikes. If DOA spikes on Protect and then Ice Beams Groudon, that's really nasty. And ZF says, it's not worth risking getting the spike, eating spikes and taking the hit. I'd rather just take the hit because that means, I'm likely to take the hit either way. And, the lefties, the accumulated lefties don't do enough to justify risking it and having to contend with spikes and a hit, So, good EQ, and, Stone either didn't have spikes or just went right for the Ice Beam and read that situation nicely. So, nice move either way. Now he's going to protect on the Dialga, and the Groudon is faster, so that's interesting in that, Groudon's obviously not going to KO the Dialga because Dialga's a beast, but it is, it's interesting that he didn't go to anything faster. Maybe he didn't want to, I think it might have been that he just didn't want to have his faster Pokemon affected by Toxic Spikes. So, or in the case of Rayquaza, not affected by T-Spikes, but having it eat rocks. So yeah, T-Tar comes in, finishes off Dialga. You don't want to switch into it, especially when Dialga's at low health. And then Ray, same deal. And Latias comes in, going to finish off the Ray. It's going to eat the the E-Speed. And for good chunk, but yeah, it's going to finish it off. And now, Stone evens it up again, back to 2-2 as Darkrai pulses Latias down, and Tina O doesn't want any part of it. And Darkrai's got Lefty, so it's not getting chipped as much, but it's still getting chipped by the T-Spike Sand combo. And in comes Shaman, the most devilish abuser of Toxic Spikes. And it is going to Seed Flare Darkrai and show Lefties. Strangely slow team from ZF. He's got a good defensive... I take that back. It is slow on average, but Latias and Shaman do fine. You don't need a Scarfer. In fact, the more I think about it, the more heads up it is to not just fall into the trap of, oh, well, I need a Scarfer now. I was half expecting the Shaman to be Scarf, but given how fast Latias and Shaman are, and the bulk and general good defensive core he has, means that that's a very creative way of not having to run a Scarfer and still having a defensively sound, bulky team. So props to ZF on that one. So in comes Garchomp, and it's going to outrage the Shaman, because it is that is a Scarfer. And if it KOs Tina O, that's the game. Well, actually, there's Sandvale, so who's to say? And it does, and Stone Cold takes a 1-0 lead. So softening up that Groudon, just let Garchomp go to town late game. And so that was a really nicely executed long-term game plan on Stone's end. I was expecting more of a Mewtwo from Shaman, which would have been more of a Thorn. But it was very nicely done by Stone to hold back his pieces the way he did. So 1-0 Stone, we move on to game 2. Tentacruel, Fori again. There's Hydro, gonna look like a 3 KO. There's some spikes from ZF. Stone's gonna get us some T-spikes of his own. Second layer of spikes from ZF. Are we gonna see the spin? We are gonna see the spin as ZF blocks it. And Icy Wind doesn't do very much, but it chunks Giratina a little, and ZF goes for a Wisp and burns Tentacruel's Lum. He was expecting Tentacruel to switch. Definitely a fair assumption. But now Tena goes for the second layer of T-Spikes and gets Shadow Sneaked as ZF EQs into Sneaks. So he's revealed that he's a physical Wisp Giratina. Oh, great set. And we've got some hazards on both sides, and we're going to see some more from Stone and from ZF here as rocks go up. And from ZF also, rocks go up. So Dragon Pulse. Are we going to see some roars soon? The Dialgas appear to be speed tying as ZF's Dialga set up rocks first. But Stone's Dialga got lefties first, twice now. So we see Protect from ZF and Roar from Stone, and in comes Breloom. That's really cool. Breloom does not really exist in DPP, or not, does not really. It does not exist in DPP Ubers at all. But some players have been experimenting with it and making it exist, bringing it into existence, making their dreams a reality. It's beautiful. So yeah, Breloom definitely has some cool applications with hazards and Spore and Leech Seed, and people have been experimenting with a lot of sets, actually. So in comes Stone's second spinner, forcing the Giratina O back in, and even Payback's not going to necessarily dispatch it, but he just goes right for the spin. And yeah, now he's going to get burned, and he's able to Toxic the Tina O, but it's now the Fori's on the timer too, so it's not going to work as much. So at least Stone's going to get some spikes of his own, so he's really littering the field with hazards, but nothing on ZF's side is affected by T-spikes yet. And ZF is also, I mean, he's got a chunk team as well, but Stone is, he's got the Sleeping Dialga, the Tentacruel down, the Fori down. So it's about to be a 5-4 ZF, as he shows Outrage as his Dragon Stab over Dragon Claw and the physical Wisp Tina O, which is cool. But yeah, it's looking like ZF is a bit ahead. Now, in comes Giratina, and on a team like this, which is all about those T-spikes, then it's going to be some sub stuff, sub Protect, sub Calm Mind, sub Wisp, sub Calm Mind Roar, whatever combination of those weird ones that try to abuse T-spikes. But it's not looking like it can set up here because as Stone protects, then ZF reveals Trick, so he's a Scarf Jirachi. And knowing he's scaring the Giratina out, he doubles to Fori on the Sleeping Dialga. I mean, Fori's nice in general because even if Stone doubles to something that can threaten the Fori, aka something that's not sleeping, then, who cares because the Fori's pretty expendable. But it also has a potential upside. So Stone is forced to go back to Giratina, and ZF goes for T-Spikes, which was a great move because if Giratina comes in, fine, it's taking a lot of hazard damage. And if it doesn't come in there, then it's basically ended as soon as it gets T-Spiked. So there's the sub. He's going to try and sub-protect his way out of this one. Oh, but it's Protect Roar on ZF's team. Great set. Underappreciated. I believe Crystal was the first one to use it this tournament. Really glad to see it. And yeah, now, unless Stone's last two can mount some sort of comeback, which doesn't seem like the likeliest thing given all those hazards and ZF's remaining Scarf Rachi and Unrevealed Poke, then yeah. I mean, Stone's got some hazards of his own as well, of course, but with when you've got like T-Spikes abusers like this, then you're going to have things that aren't so good against Jirachi. Like, see Mewtwo here, Lottie is another example. Kyogre, maybe, but with how healthy Dialga still is and the T-Spikes, then it's not looking too likely, especially because Breloom could potentially abuse rest sets. That's something cool that hasn't really been seen in hasn't ever been seen in Ubers. You know, why do you have Breloom? Oh, to abuse Dialga. Anyway, Breloom switches into Mewtwo here after some. Oh my goodness. Well, if this Mewtwo doesn't have an attacking move, as is the case for many Taunt Wisp Mewtwo's, then it's going to be completely walled by Yup. So here's a use of Breloom in DPP Ubers, folks. It walls Taunt Wisp Mewtwo that doesn't run Ice Beam. Or, I mean, Aura Sphere, I guess. But, you know, an attacking move, which is a lot of them. They like Light Screen, Amnesia, Sub. So that's really cool. I really appreciate that. So we see Sky Uppercut as the fighting stab here, which is unique. Leech Seed and Sky Uppercut, so I dig that. And the last is Palkia, so with the poison, doesn't look like he's going to be breaking through this team as Fortress gets sacked. But yeah, this tournament continues to be a breeding ground of progress as Breloom shows. I mean, I was talking about how it's going to potentially stop a Kyogre, but here we saw Breloom countering Mewtwo. And I just think that's beautiful. So, ZF's support Dialga looks like it's going to be cleaning up here. And that's going to tie up the series and make it 1-1. As the Mewtwo last is, of course... Well, ZF's not going to switch to the Breloom, even though he totally should. But, yeah, shows Will-O-Wisp. I guess he's forcing it to reveal the moveset. And it doesn't really matter at this point. And he goes to Jirachi, tricks... And now locks into Will-O-Wisp, and now Breloom is going to finish the game by beating Mewtwo. And isn't that just the coolest thing you ever saw? So, and gets the sub up, and leeches Mewtwo, and that is going to be it. So, to Game 3 we go, 1-1. Kyogre lead, Rayquaza lead. So is this Rayquaza going to Sash or Lum? I guess it's not Sash because it switches out and goes to a Groudon on the Ice Beam, which is very clearly targeted at it. So, interesting choice from ZF there. That is a instant Kyogre. I mean, Kyogre pivoting with Groudon isn't necessarily strange, but it is strange. Even pivoting into Kyogre with Groudon into Ice Beam isn't necessarily strange, but you generally do that, once the game's underway. You've got some chip damage going. You've got some situations set up, not on the first turn. So, and now it makes a lot more sense. He had to get that Sun going for Wobbuffet to be able to mirror coat it down. So that's very nicely done from ZF's end. And there's also the possibility that taking damage on Groudon is a good thing if it's Custat Berry. That's a really cool strategy in general. It's kind of like an advanced OU, like if you have something like a Salic Pert, you actually like it, or like a Charizard that likes to drop into Blaze, you actually like them taking damage, because at low health is when they become really dangerous. And so it's similar with Custap here. And so that Groudon switch has two benefits, and I really like that team, because that's no accident that was his strategy. It's not like he threw together that team on the and was like, oh, you know what, maybe I can do this. That's very clearly designed to get Kyogre out of the way very early on. And it means he doesn't have to necessarily he can run a Lum Rayquaza to beat Darkrai, and he can still beat Kyogre like he would with Sash through teammates. So that's really layered and really beautiful, and I'm definitely going to cover that more in the post-tournament video, which I'm going to do, covering all the cool stuff that was in this tournament. But yeah, can't stress enough how much I like the strategy of removing Kyogre, because even taking the damage on Groudon isn't necessarily a bad thing. Not only are you winning the Weather War, removing the rain very early on, but you even get the benefit of that Custab Berry more easily later on. So yeah, really nicely done. And unless, of course, you get unlucky and T-Wave and... Well, the Mirror Coat is not quite going to do the job because, sadly, he... Stone made the right move of going for T-Wave. Well, okay, first, the Ice Beam that Wob switched into crit it, which was unlucky. Then Stone made the right move and went for T-Wave and to paralyze the Wob. And then Thunder hit in Sun, and Wob got parried. So that was really unlucky, because if it misses, then Wob gets more lefties. So then the Ice Beam that actually does go off, and the Mirror Coat does a lot of damage for sure. Makes it easier to beat the Kyogre, but it's not how the strategy is supposed to go. So unfortunate for ZF there. But at least Rayquaza comes in, and Dragon Claws and Kyogre stays in. So it could have been a lot worse. So now Dialga comes in. ZF has to be aggressive, and Ray lives the pulse just barely. And Dialga gets taken out by the second EQ. So aggressive playstyle for an aggressive team. In comes Groudon, and takes one Iron Head, takes the... Oh, it doesn't take the other Iron Head, and that really sucks, because if it was Custap, as ZF says it does, as you see there, then he would have been able to get up rocks, or EQ the Jirachi or something, even if he gets flinched. So that was unlucky. But both players are definitely locked into their strategy here, as... Sorry, my brain totally froze. I tried to analyze 16 things at once, as usual. So, Rachi comes in, obviously... Well, maybe not necessarily obviously going to be Scarf, but on such an aggressive team where you need speed and you need the defense, you can get enough defense from just Jirachi existing on the team to begin with. You don't need to make it a bulky set. And that way it saves you from needing to, solve your speed issues later on. Just get it all in the same slot. So there's the Scarf Rachi, which does not threaten the Stone Rachi necessarily. He just stays in with his own just to see what the other Rachi wants to do. And ZF's Rachi U-turns first, and in comes Darkrai into Iron Head. So, yeah, Jirachi's doing a lot of damage. And Ray is still around. I guess you could have argued that maybe Ray should have been sacked to Jirachi. I don't know. I think Groudon was fine. But, yeah, this is a Rachi game as Healing Wish goes off, and Ray is Healing Wish 2. So, yeah, the problem is that ZF's Rachi can't really threaten Stones, and Stone probably has some more Iron Head resists, whereas ZF's team does not handle it really well. As Ray gets flinched out, Rai avoids the KO but gets flinched as well. And and the last is Latios, so also not a Pokemon. I mean, this can be like, oh, well, there's Dragon Dance, but is it going to be enough? As it EQs, doesn't show Life Orb, in comes Palkia, trying to bait the Dragon move. There's the Draco Meteor. Habenberry, Palk lives because Latios is going to have some split EVs, not full special attack or attack on DD sets. Unless you're running full special DD, but that's not the case because this is not doing it. Yeah, because it's running EQ. So, yeah, Haben Palk manages to survive, and that's the series. So, yeah, Rachi did Rachi things, but the ZF's team also did not handle Iron Head well at all, was another problem. I mean, Wob also can potentially, but, it's tasked with a lot of things, so. But yeah, both players played this series really well, so that is where we are going to not end the video. That is the end of the first series, and we move on to FC versus EO Ut Mortis. Kyogre lead from EO, DOA lead from FC. Are we going to see a T-Wave from Kyogre? Are we going to see a Thunder? We see Thunder as DOA goes for Spikes. There's the para that the Kyogre hopes for. And FC gets a crit E-Speed to get something in before DOA goes down. So that's a successful DOA start. Kyogre at half, threatened out by Latios. In comes Clefable into the Latios. Now that's a much more dangerous proposition if it's switching into Thunder, especially if there's a possible Draco Meteor follow-up. But fortunately, it is Grass Knot here. And the Clefable is no lefties, so I'm wondering what it is. If it's like Mail to block Trick or something, that would be very EO. I don't know if it's Trick itself. If it was Trick Sticky Barb, it might have already used it. And it also, if it's T-Wave, Wish, S-Toss, then it needs Protect or Soft Boiled, so I don't think it's tricking that Sticky Barb, as cool as that would be. So, Jirachi comes in, eats the T-Wave, gets up Roxas Clef, throws up a Wish, and then heals up Kyogre. Very nicely done. And FC reads that beautifully and goes back to Latios for more threat. Now, and if that if FC's Latios does not have Thunder, this also suggests that it's a Sun team, because with Groudon, you'd sometimes prefer Grass Knot over Thunder. Yeah, you're going to be handling Kyogre a lot, so you still run Thunder on Sun sometimes, but you also enjoy Grass Knot because it hits Groudon harder as well. If you're not running Thunder, that makes it a lot more likely that it's going to be a Sun team. And if no Thunder, then Skarmory can handle it nicely. So nice read by EO, and now he's getting up some hazards of his own. And in comes Kyogre. What's EO's Kyogre answer going to be? Palkia, that can work, depending. There's a big water spout, but not quite Specs. It's going to be look like a Scarf Ogre as Palkia comes in, and beautifully read switch by EO, knowing that Kyogre's not staying in. You can't just let Kyogre, or you can't just let Jirachi come in and eat up the Dragon move or Thunder. So really not quite a boosted Hydro. Looks like Scarf, but I'm thinking it's Habin, as opposed to Lustrous Orb. Or, yeah, not quite Lustrous or Specs, I mean, as in the attack itself wasn't boosted. So it could have been Scarf or it could have been Habin. And we see that it's not Scarf because it switches over to Thunder as Jirachi fails to survive the, fails to not get full parried. Or, just gets full parried as Thunder goes down. You could make an argument for a Latias switch there because there's no way that EO is, he's either locked into Hydro or he's either locked into Hydro or he's not going to go for Spatial Rend, even if he's not locked in. It's a hard trigger to pull, but at this point, you gotta preserve your pokes where you can, because EO's kind of out in front. So I think it was a reasonable move to make, especially because Latias lives Latias lives Spatial Rend, especially if it's not Lustrous Orb. It kind of bounces off because Solju Latias does amazing things. And so I think, and you saw that it wasn't Lustrous from how much Hydro did, so I think Latias was the move there. Rachi being alive wouldn't be, amazing, but it was better than just letting it die. Obviously it was unlucky, but still. Anyway, so EO goes for Toxic on this Kyogre switch to further limit it, but Palkia still not switching in well, but he's got Dialga for backup, so that's good. And takes the Surf pretty nicely. I mean, Hazards chunk it, but it's got lefties, not the worst. And Kyogre stays in, eats a Surf, and there's the sub. So it is going to be a sub bulk up Dialga. And it's not going to be the kind with Protect because it does not use Protect there. And as a result, then... Oh, no, it was a Toxic, not regular Poison. So Kyogre does go down in conjunction with the Dragon Claw and Poison. But... yeah, Dialga's down as well. But the Skarmory is actually the biggest issue here as FC looks for the crit KO, and now in comes Kingdra. So, but now Kingdra switches. Yeah, I don't agree with that at all. Kingdra's such a threat, and if you get it in without taking the Toxic, then it can bring the game back for you. But instead, it's instantly on a timer, so it's going to be severely limited. And Kyogre goes down. Could it be Custap? No, it's not going to be Custap, but Kyogre's on the... I mean, then again, Kingdra... Oh, there's Groudon, so didn't wind up making too much of a difference. But also, I was very wrong. I'll take responsibility for saying that it was likelier that it was a Sun team. Because not only was it not a Sun team, it's a Rain team that's so dependent on Rain that it has Kingdra. So, yeah, no Sun there. And generally, I think Thunder is better on Rain teams, so I'm not gonna... That's my preference anyway. Especially because you hit the Steel so much harder. And, being walled by Skarm in Rain just feels kind of silly. It's generally the rule of thumb. But yeah, so Kingdra does nothing to Clef and goes down from the Toxic, and now in comes Skyman, which dodges T-Wave through sub, so uh-oh. But Skarmory can still handle it pretty decently, and Clef is not instantly threatened either, so it can throw up a Wish and heal Skarmory even more. So, good Leech Seed on FC's end. So now Skarm is, potentially Air Slash down, and AO is, Skarmory gets threatened, Palkia's going to be outrun and destroyed, and Clef's down, so it's really up to the Skarmory to stave off this Skyman, or that's the game. Now, there's a flinch, but you can't do that forever. And, I mean, yeah, Whirlwind, but, he's not even going to be able to handle Latias well. And since the Shaman subs, then in a one-on-one, even Skarmory can't beat it. And there's the Seed Flare looking for the drop on the Roost, so then the Air Slashes can start to sting. But now the Pulses, that's going to pick up a KO. You know, even if Latias goes down, then Skyman is looking really dangerous. And great move from FC, Calm Minding on the switch to make the Latias an actual threat instead of just something that has to... You know, now instead of just letting Latias go down and then trying to win with Shaman, now even the Latias can potentially win on its own. So that was a great move, and going for the second Calm Mind was really smart, knowing the Palkia is not going to threaten it necessarily. And yeah, did 34 after the second one, so that was nothing. And Grass Knot on Groudon, and with Skarmory down, then so the Air Slash or the Seed Flare drop was well timed, and it allowed Latias to go for the sweep, whereas previously it was very unthreatening. So really nicely executed by FC, and great long-term planning. And we move on to Game 2, FC with a 1-0 lead. So we're going to switch sides to keep it consistent. Dio speed this time against Tentacruel. Are we going to see a Taunt, a Psycho Boost, a Trick? That's what we see. Dio S gets the Lum, Tentacruel gets the T-Spikes down, in comes Groudon. And FC tries to T-Wave the switch, but does nothing since, you know, Groudon. And Groudon just goes for EQ, trying to not be haplessly taunted. But FC makes a really nice move and gives... it's less about giving Groudon Lum and more about taking the lefties away. You know, Groudon's not going to say no to a Lum Berry, but yeah, the Lum also... So this also gives it a... Well, I was going to say it looks like it's going to avoid the 2-hit KO from EQ thanks to the lefties, but he taunts to prevent the rocks from going down and winds up not getting any spikes at all. So I'm not... Yeah, I don't know about that sequence. If it means... I mean, yeah, Tentacruel is scarfed and Groudon doesn't have Lum or lefties anymore, but I'm pretty sure that getting a spike down would be, you know, the best thing there. So Bronzong comes in, clearly not fearing a fire move, and rocks go down as Dialga comes in, threatening out with Sun-boosted fire. In comes Wob, which affected by T-Spikes. Or not even, you know, even if the Bronzong doesn't fall for the bait, which it really should, by the way, of, you know, Sun-boosted fire move. You know, sub-bulk up Dialga sets up all over Bronzong. His Bronzong does like 2 damage. So this Dialga is in fact Protect, and you know, thinks about it for about 150 seconds. Sorry, actually more. I forgot the 270 is only the first one that shows up. So he thinks about it for a long time. He thinks about it for about 180 seconds, in fact. And he subs on Encore and gets Encored into that while Wob sets up a safeguard. So he decided, I think he was just calculating, you know, what's the safest move, because I don't want to Dragon Claw and then get myself countered needlessly. And, you know, I personally thought he was going to lock into Bulk Up, but I'm sure, well, no, no, I take that back. Sub is a good move to be locked into, because that way you can just kind of ride out the Encore, because even if they switch into something and like attack you, you can just keep subbing until the Encore rolls out, whereas Bulk Up, I mean, Bulk Up is effectively similar, but Sub is a pretty safe bet. So in comes Mence, and so you're going to see that Sub thing on full display here as Dialga's just going to sub out the Encore. So Bulk Up would have effectively been the same thing, but it doesn't really do well against barrages of Draco Meteors, so I definitely see why AO went with Sub. So well thought out. And, you know, there goes the Encore, and Mence is forced to switch out, and there's Dragon Claw, which does 0 to Wob. Oh my god. But he's going to get protected, and then he's going to, you know, Encore again. So this is not really advantageous for FC at all, and Dialga proving once again how great it is. No, he's just going to go for the Dragon Claw because now Wob is in range thanks to all the accumulated poison damage, or the accumulated damage in general. And yeah, this thing is locked into Dragon Claw now, but it's also very healthy. It took out a Wob, it revealed a Mence, and I mean, D-Claw might not KO Mence, but it's, you know, still going to beat it one-on-one easily. This EQ isn't going to do anything. But he's not even going to risk it. He's going to go to Cresselia, jewel of this tour, as bulky Sun teams have really come to the forefront. And it bounced, that Outrage bounced off. Oh, that's a throwback. Watching Mence attack a Cress. What is this? Diamond and Pearl? Or, you know, just Platinum because Mence didn't have Outrage in Diamond and Pearl. But yeah, he moonlights off the damage like nothing. And Yeah, in comes Zong again. In comes Dialga. Doesn't even mind if it eats an EQ on the switch. No, FC's just going to go right for the straight payback. I think he could have gone for EQ because Cress is never risking, Toxic there, or he could have doubled. Either way, it shouldn't have just been let Dialga come in for free and then do nothing to the Dialga while losing Zong. I don't think that was the way to go. But it looks like an uphill battle at this point anyway, because Palkia comes in affected by T-Spike, so it just looks like the team is very vulnerable to Dialga. So Spatial Rend Crit does not get the job done, as Dragon Claw doesn't either, but with T-Spikes and 2 turns thanks to Protect. Protect once again showing why it's the best move in the game. Yeah, that's going to finish off the Palk. And the last poke against still got all 6 pokes, and Ray's not going to be able to set up. The Ray was halfway telegraphed once the Wob and the Ments were shown together. It was meant to be. So, yeah, Tentacruel comes in, and actually the Tentacruel's Scarf is perfect here because it doesn't have Icy Wind, but it has Ice Beam, and since Tentacruel is faster than Ray, we see Scarf Tentacruel checking DD Rayquaza. I mean, it gets outrun because of E-Speed, but still, it's the spirit of it. Yeah, so EO is going to bring this one back, and it's going to be 1-1 with going into the deciding 3rd game. So, yeah, I think the spikes from FC definitely would have helped him out against that Dialga. But I think the team just struggled in general against the T-Spikes Dialga combination. So, game 3, switch sides again. There's a Kyogre, there's a Kyogre. And FC's Kyogre runs, goes to Dialga. Both of them go to Dialga. So I assume that they're going to set up rocks now. There's rocks. There's rocks. Mirrors. So there's Dragon Pulse. There's Dragon Pulse. Oh my god. They both do exactly 25% too. So leaving both Dialgas at 81. And FC decides to not be cool anymore and use Protect instead of another Dragon Pulse. Making the smart move, gaining HP. Pressure stalling EO's Dragon Pulses more efficiently. What a weirdo. But, yeah, EO's Dialga actually had 1% more health, but now it's 2% behind. So, and FC gets the crit KO, so advantageous there. And in comes a Chomp. What's the answer going to be? Ho-Oh. That's an unusual Chomp answer, but very unlikely that AO is going to do anything besides EQ there, and now it's forced to reveal. If it's going to be SD Aqua Tail or something, then Ho-Oh is down. But I think that sub was really, really risky, because you force Roost, and, well, now Scarm switches again to Ho-Oh and chasing it out is really funny. And, I mean, Ho-Oh Rain is not the weirdest thing, but I think that sub was definitely premature, because imagine if you roost and then you can be a threat, as opposed to sub and then you have to roost. So you have less choice. So I think that was definitely not the way to go. But yeah, Tina O is in. Is it going to Thunder? Is it going to... No, it's just going to Draco Meteor. As EO, is he going to roost his Scout? No, he's just going to get some spikes down. He needs more hazards to harass FC's team. So this... There's going to be another case of the Rain team walled by Skarmory. Well, there's Manaphy, which is definitely not walled by Skarmory. But, yeah, so what's EO's response going to be with Dialga down? Oh, that does nothing. Oh, my God. So that's a 0 special attack Manaphy. I'm not used to these after newer gens where they run all these offensive spreads. But, yeah, that does approximately zilch. And Skarmory's roosting. Great moves by EO, reading that FC doesn't want to boost and get whirlwinded. And reading that to get roosts and extra health on Skarm. So really nicely done. Not just extra health, but going for spikes as well. So really playing the long game. And there's the Calm Mind. Is this where the whirlwind? Yep. Great moves by EO. Reading the situation beautifully. And now he's really going to be able to hack FC's team to pieces. Now he's got a content... And FC does not go for Dark Void or anything. I don't know what he was afraid of there, but he definitely can't afford to be switching around. When your team is getting ripped apart by hazards, you have to do as much damage as possible or make as much progress as possible without switching around and taking all this damage. I assume there's the Thunder, so I guess he didn't want Garchomp to switch, but Garchomp was never going to switch in there, because you don't even know that it's Thunder. What if Garchomp switches into Will-O-Wisp there? So I think just playing it straight was fine, but at least Skarm finally goes down. In comes a Palkia, and avoids a Draco, although Draco is definitely still going to do it. And there's a Sneak, which does not break the sub. Nice. So, way to use it. And put it in range for Darkrai potentially. I think it's going to be barely out of range. But yeah, FC is now he's tasked with trying to. Oh, there's a Quick Claw on Kyogre. That's really funny. So yeah, he's tasked with trying to make too large a comeback. The good news is that Kyogre is now going to lock into a move, but it can also lock into Thunder pretty easily because it destroys everything besides Dialga, which is at half health, and it's going to be ravaged by hazards. So, also that Kyogre is so slow that it does not outrun Darkrai even with a Scarf, which is not strange, but still amusing. And there goes the Dark Void. So, yeah, this is... I mean, it's not going to... As long as EO manages to not, choke and lose to Manaphy, this game looks pretty difficult to lose. Well, that helps for sure. He gets the Para on Ogre, and he's gonna, squeeze out as much health on that Dialga as he could possibly get. But the Palkia looks threatening still, and so does the Garchomp. Well, no, Garchomp can get stalled out by Rest Manaphy easily. It's the Palkia that you really got to worry about, and Spatial Ren's not, wanting to protect, knowing it might not even do anything, and you might unnecessarily give up a sub. So this makes me think about how cool sub Pattaya Kyogre would be, or sorry, Palkia would be. Can you imagine you switch into all these hazards and you get the special attack boost and you just rip everything up? That would be cool. I hope someone uses that. So yeah, in comes Manaphy, and it is tasked with something it cannot do, and Palkia's just going to sweep here. So yeah, that's a cool series. And we are going to leave. Oh, what the heck? We'll get one more series in there. Yeah, especially because the next video would be too long. Yeah. So we'll make this another two-parter for the mini playoff. All right. So, well done to both these guys, and EO moves on to round 2. So, round 2, Stone Cold versus Hack. Hack received a bye in the first round. He and Feint were the receivers of these byes thanks to strength of schedule, and I think they won earliest, I believe. So, yeah. It wasn't the perfect criteria, but it was the best of what we had, so... so Stone leads Darkrai, Hack leads Kyogre. Kyogre traditionally advantaged here, but Void, there's the Lum, and Water Spout, and down goes Rai. So, good start for Hack, and now in comes Groudon trying to get up. Oh, just an Earthquake, not letting Kyogre get a cheap shot on him, so nicely done. That's a fast Groudon. Or, well, I guess not necessarily fast, but... any investment on Rock's Groudon makes it seem fast, because usually it's 0 speed. And it's especially fast because Water Spout Kyogre is generally not slow, but it's also, not the Sorry, it's not fast, but it's also not 0 speed fast. So that Groudon's definitely got to be packing. And he goes right for EQ and chunks the Kyogre and weakens its Water Spout by a lot, so it does, 42. So in comes Latios, and now Groudon goes for sub. And the second sub, now I feel bad for saying that ZF sub Groudon was the first I ever saw, because I forgot that earlier in this tournament, Stone used his own sub Groudon. It wasn't a sub Protect, but he did use a sub Groudon. So in comes Latios, and Stone scouts that beautifully with the sub Groudon, so, props to Stone. That's what sub's for. He reads the the fact that Kyogre's not going to stay in, and manages to, instead of having to predict the Giratina O or the Lottie twin coming in, then he just gets the sub and gets the hit off cleanly. And with Latios Draco Meteoring there, not running Grass Knot, which is typical with Kyogre, meaning Thunder, then now that means that that's really, really nice, because now Groudon can get that one-on-one really easily, whereas if he Dragon Clawed on the switch, then he might have still been in range for D-Meteor? Maybe. It depends on EVs on both sides. But baiting out that -2 through sub, really cool application of sub. And Draco Meteor the tier, that can be really good. So really, really cool to see that. And that means Stone is not forced out by the Latios at all, and he's able to stand and go for D-Claw, and he's able to spam it twice, and not let Latios back in. Now Hack is going to go to Bronzong, which walls Groudon in rain, but he also knew that he didn't have to fear Custat from the Kyogre, which is nice, because it ate its Lum. and it can only come in once more, even if rocks go up, but it certainly isn't switching into any more attacks, bar like HP Fire or something. So in comes Stone's own Zong, which is, as Hack goes for rocks, and Hack goes to a Magnezone now as Stone pops up his own. And in comes Thunder, doing a lot of damage, and even EQ from Zong isn't quite going to KO. It's going to do a lot, but not quite KO. But he gets parried, so that is unfortunate. In comes Groudon for another rain of scary. Magnezone's going to run, Kyogre's going to come in, and Stone gets the sub up. So now Zong still walls it. We don't know what the last move is, if it's like Lava Plume or SD or what, Fire Punch. But we're probably going to see it here. Yup, there's Fire Punch. Yeah, we're going to see it here. And still not bad, because now the Weather War is officially won unless Stone lets his Groudon get exploded on here. Because Kyogre can no longer switch in, and next time, Zong is not a... Well, I was going to say, Zong's no longer going to be able to wall Groudon, because it's not going to be able to fall back on... It's not going to exist in rain anymore. But it's also not going to wall Groudon, because Wob has trapped it. Switching into the Gyro Ball, and encoring and now countering. So the Gyro Ball leaves Wob just out of Custap range, although he can switch in and out, or out and in if he really wants to. In comes the Groudon, and gets dropped by a Flash Cannon, which is unexpected. There's no real set standard for Magnezone, so, and Flash Cannon doesn't... Well, I mean, it hits Groudon hard, and but it's not something you really think of regarding Magnezone doing its job, but Flash Cannon definitely lets it do things like also hit T-Tar really nicely, and it's not like you really have that many better moves, so really cool to see there. So Groudon does go down, but Wob is also going to forcibly remove the Magnezone. So with Kyogre dead to rocks and Latias weakened, then it's definitely going to be a tight finish. Hack uses that Latias as it's 3-2 with 2 unrevealed on both sides, and Stone is forced to reveal his unrevealed first, as Hack is able to use his Kyogre to scout, and Hack reveals his own Dialga. So there's Dragon Pulse doing a lot of damage, considering that's Dragon Claw, so that's lefty, so that's bulky, so that's doing a lot. And if this is, Hack's Dialga is not coming out on top of this one, as there's another Dragon Pulse. It might be Timid Specs, is my vague estimate, because it's doing way too much. It's got to be boosted in some form. I don't think it's going to be like Modest Adamant Orb or something. So Timid Specs is my guess. So now Hack reveals his own last, and Garchomp is really threatening when there's no more Zong, there's no more Groudon. So an offensive team is not going to be able to handle it very reliably. It just goes right for the outrage. That's the threatening move. You don't want the last... Yeah, you don't want that thing... I mean, he was probably going to be fine anyway, because Latias limits it to 1 boost, and Chomp lives even to +2... I think it lives even +2 Life Orb speed if it was SD Ray. But yeah, great finish from Hack, really nicely done, and very nice Drag Mag team. So, Hack leads 1-0, and move on to Game 2. Tentacruel, Dio Speed. What's it going to be? There's a trick from Stone, gets a Focus Sash as the T-spikes go down, and I assume Stone's just going to start laying those spikes. Yep, there they go. He can prevent Dialga from getting up rocks, as that's what DOS loves to do. And rather than going for the second layer, he chooses to T-Wave the Dialga. Nice move, because 2 layers of spikes is generally not really that good. It's not, if you can do something else, it's generally worth doing that. And he decided, if I can paralyze that Dialga, then that can be, that's much more beneficial than a second layer of spikes. So now Tentacruel comes in on the Ho-Oh, and it can spin. Yeah, and it spins, but it's also going to be KO'd, and Ho-Oh still has a sub. So, the 1 spike goes down, but potentially worth it, especially because Kyogre... Well, no, now... I thought Hack was going to switch to Dialga there, because when Dialga is paralyzed in rain, then it's a great Ho-Oh answer, because it can't be burned by Sacred Fire, and it's not taking much damage either. But Hack stays in and goes for Surf to break the sub and eats a big Brave Bird, and that might wind up being big later. I think he could have avoided that. Now he goes to Bronzong, trying to get up some rocks, and Ho-Oh comes back in on the rocks. So, okay, it's not a Rocks Dialga. We see that now. Maybe it's a Scarf Dialga. Well, no, not necessarily. It could just be like an offensive Protect Dialga, which is a really cool set. I just, Scarf and Standard Rocks are just so good at being the default Dialga sets that those are the first assumptions that everyone makes for good reason. And that's part of what makes Dialga's alternative sets so good. The fact that the standard ones are so expected. So either way, Ho-Oh is still threatening, but not as threatening since it's got to contend with Rain and is unable to burn the Dialga. So in comes Giratina as Ho-Oh, and Calm Mind as Ho-Oh subs and recovers. And in comes the Pulse, breaking the sub, and he's going to just Brave Bird, and Ho-Oh is really, really specially bulky, and Giratina is not very specially powerful. Oh, there's Thunder. Great move. That's a really nice surprise. And, so Ho-Oh did still do a lot more than I expected, given that it was essentially walled by the paralyzed Dialga. But, yeah, it manages to rip a huge chunk off Kyogre and Giratina, so that's really valuable. And, so really cool to see Thunder on Calm Mind Giratina. That's not something we've really seen so far. And, that mono dragon coverage does often hold Giratina back, but Thunder gives it a lot of play against things like Skarmory. That's a huge one, and makes it a lot better against Kyogre as well. So I really enjoyed seeing that. So props to Hack, but he cannot, I don't know if I assume it's Sublast just for Toxics, but he can't fit Protect, and thus he is not able to scout the Dialga and doesn't want to switch to Bronzong necessarily. So the Dialga shows that it is not leftovers. So that's valuable. Could be another Specs one. And now Groudon with T-Spikes down is forced to switch into Kyogre, but it manages to come into a T-Wave. Nicely done. I think Hack was looking for that Lottie or that, that backup. Actually, no, I think he was just trying to... What am I talking about? Like, why was he going to use a Water move there? Of course he was going to T-Wave. He was trying to stop the Dialga. So that was a really nice move from Stone. And now he's going to go for a T-Wave of his own and nail that Kyogre. It had shown lefties, so no fear of that. And T-Waving Bronzong is hardly bad either. And he's going to EQ and get a nasty crit. And so that is brutal. In comes Mewtwo, though. Mewtwo's really threatening with all these hazards down with a chip team. So cool team from Hack. And in comes Stone's own Mewtwo. And that's also really threatening because with its coverage, it can destroy both Bronzong and Dialga. And the opposing, you see, Life Orb Fire Blast in Sun doing 91 to a neutral target in Mewtwo, who is by no means frail. So Mewtwo is just that strong. And shows Thunderbolt, so that's really cool. That electric coverage regardless of Sun. So otherwise Ho-Oh would wall it. Oh, that's really smart. I really like that choice from Stone. Because when you run Thunder Mewtwo, then you're still not great against Ho-Oh and Sun. So that's really cool to see. Major props there. And he's going to get one more hit off unless that Dialga has Protect. And it does, and it full paras, and he gets the Self-Destruct doesn't do very much. But now it's up to Dialga to stop Stone's own Dialga, which looks like Specs, and Latios. So not the most impossible task, but not the most reliable one either. Ooh, Draco crit, that does a lot. But if Stone's Dialga is indeed Specs, it can just spam Sunny Fire Blast at this point. And he does eat the EQ on the switch, but it doesn't do very much. And in comes Dialga. And yeah, that Fire Blast does a lot of damage. So we can try to Protect, Pressure Stall it. He doesn't go for the Protect, sadly. But yeah, so that was a tight finish. And we are now at a 1-1 score going into Game 3. Oh, I want to switch sides. All right. T-Tar, Ogre lead. Sand goes first, so T-Tar is faster. And we're going to contend with Rain, and that means it's almost surely going to be... No, it's going to be definitive. It is Sash Tar and a very slow Kyogre lead, so T-Wave is definitely likely. There's the T-Wave on the rocks. And now Hydro goes off. There's the Sash. It can be Payback. It can also be Crunch, depending. And it winds up being Payback, which is beneficial, actually, even though it's faster because it wound up eating the T-Wave. So good trades for both players. Stone goes up 6-5, whereas Hack gets Rocks up and brings Kyogre down to around half. So in comes Latios, and he's just going to Thunder, and Stone does not switch out, and now it is 5-5. But it's about to be 5-4 effectively, unless there's some really good Sleep Talk absorption on Hack's side, because Stone has the I have to come up with a good name for it. But, Darkrai seizes momentum. It really forces the score in your favor, thanks to how powerful Dark Void is. So, good sacrifice to not, try to switch around the Latias, which can throw around a lot of annoying para status and damage in general, and just cutting losses and getting the most out of Darkrai. I think that's really nicely executed. So, what's also nicely executed is the sub on the Switch to really get the most out of that Dark Void. So now you know if this Dialga is Scarf or not, and that's really huge. And that's just that Dark Void miss sucks. We also know that the Darkrai isn't lefties, which most of these sub Darkrai's are, sub Nasty Plot, Dark Pulse, and they wind up just getting walled. But maybe it has Focus Blast, maybe it's Pataya, which is a set I really love personally. But yeah, if Dragon Pulse, that was a really nice sub, because if it is Scarf Dialga, then it takes an attack to break your sub, and then it's forced out as you sleep it, and you are then able to continue trucking and get a lot done. Or make a lot more progress, do a lot more damage, and then the Dialga is still crippled for later, easily taken advantage of. So, nicely done, just didn't pan out. And now Stone is going to fend off the Dialga with his own and fire off a Thunder, looking to make something happen. Pairs the Wob, and Wob Heck just smartly goes for the Encore on the rocks, and that lets him bring in Rayquaza for free. So we're looking at a KO here, very, very likely, because it's very difficult to switch into Rayquaza safely. In comes Jirachi, and that can stop it, because if it's Scarf Jirachi, then it... Well, I was going to say it can Ice Punch a DD Ray, and I was actually expecting Hack to switch out and go to Dialga, but instead Hack just stays in. Maybe he was Yachi Rayquaza or something, and it was... Well, instead of getting a potential flinch, or not flinching, then he just removes that possibility and goes for gets the crit. So that was unfortunate. In comes Metagross, and gets, well, I don't know if this is Rock Polish or something, which is very rare, but definitely a potentially really cool, dangerous set. And he gets a couple flinches on it, chunks it into range, and there is the agility. So it is probably not going to KO the Dialga here, but Dialga, we also don't know what Dialga can do back. It does roar it out. So Metagross was essentially chunked. I think the Iron Heads there were smart, simply because if Metagross agilities, you can potentially lose a poke, which isn't good. But, going for one just to get that chunk of damage on it can make a big difference later, and its EQ isn't exactly KOing Jirachi, and you can always roar it with Dialga. And since Stone has the trump card of Darkrai's Dark Void, he's really close to locking this game out, and just finishing. So yeah, I think he was just being really overly safe. And just trying to soften the opposing team up as much as possible so he can guarantee the Darkrai win. Because he's not really thinking, oh, I'm just going to flinch everything with Rachi, LOL, but he's trying to soften it up so he can guarantee that Dark Pulses are going to clean things up later on. So I think those are some smart Iron Heads, and decided to not push it, but yeah. Latias comes in, Draco Meteors takes the weakened Dialga down, now in comes the Rai again, and goes right for the Void and hits this time on Latias. So now, with everything gets Dark Pulsed except Dialga, and there's the sub, and here's the Wob is lefty, so it can't even Custap Debond or anything, but it can't Mirror Coat. It can only Encore, because Mirror Coat doesn't do anything to Dark types because it is a Psychic move. So Wob goes down, and Dialga's going to force it out. But you can, Stone can still see what it locks into. Not that it's hard to guess, but the chip damage also definitely helps. So at this point, and he's going to let Darkrai go. So at this point, unless the last two get completely eviscerated by Dragon moves, then it's looking like a Stone win. There's Habin, but there's a crit. So now it's interesting. This game has really been back and forth. So now he's got to go for Iron Head City. And Hack decides to, after one, he decides to sack Latias. Good move, since Latias is sleeping and Darkrai is down. So, it's best to sacrifice your sleep fodder. It's not like you're going to let him sleep something else. And then comes DOA on the sleeping Latias. And if he can grab a sub here, that is going to be, yup, he does. Great heads-up move by Stone, and that's going to be the game. So, yeah, nicely done. And, oh, okay, so yeah, Stone was looking to sub down and get the Pataya boost on, I assume he sub Pataya, on a plus speed Scarf Dialga, because plus speed Scarf Dialga outruns DOA, but non-plus speed Scarf Dialga does not outspeed DOA. And since he's faster, then he can just I think he could have just super powered either way, but or he could have subbed again now that he was faster. But either way, Thunder is going to get the job done. So yeah, nicely done to Stone, and yeah, we're at exactly an hour, so we are gonna call it there. So thank you guys for watching, and in the next one we will wrap up the mini playoff tiebreaker. It gets even hyper. So thank you to everyone who's played in this video. I really liked everyone's performances, and thank you to you guys for watching, and I will catch you in the next one.